Alright guys, name is Tyler aka Nanogenix, and today you might be looking at that title going, Nano, what in the world is going on? And if you haven't watched the global side of Dokkan Battle in a hot minute, aka in the last basically day, you might really be wondering what in the world is going on, Nano. So the Belgian Gaming Commission essentially made a change a few months back that is finally affecting Dokkan Battle. So let's go ahead and let's talk about that really fast. I'm gonna try and keep today's video brief, to the point, and very informative for those of you that maybe want to know more about it, because I've had a ton of people tweet at me, leave comments asking what is happening, what does this mean about the future of Dokkan Battle, is this going to affect me somehow, all of these things. And so I was like, okay, it's probably time we sit down, we make a video talking about all of this. So really fast, let's look at the in-game announcements first, and then we'll go from there. So the in-game announcement says, important notice for Belgian players. Dear players, earlier this year, the Belgian Gaming Commission issued a report stating that certain forms of loot boxes will be considered as a form of gambling. While we do not share the views of the Belgian Gaming Commission on this point, we have decided to take steps to comply with their interpretation of Belgian gambling laws. Starting today, players in Belgium are no longer entitled and will be unable to purchase Dragon Stones, summon tickets, or any item pack that contains those items. Belgian players will still, however, be able to use the summon feature using, they say Dragon Stone, but I feel like they meant to say using Dragon Stones, because to summon it requires at least 5, which is Dragon Stones. Anyways, that are earned through gameplay or that are given out as part of in-game events. We understand that this will have an impact on the enjoyment of our players in Belgium, but we feel that we have no choice but to make these changes so that our fans can continue to play Dragon Ball Z Dokkan Battle. We apologize for the inconvenience. If there's any change in the situation or an update to the Belgian Gaming Commission's interpretation, we will let you know. We hope you continue to enjoy playing Dragon Ball Z Dokkan Battle. So, for those that maybe aren't familiar with what this is, essentially, the Gaming Commission met back in April and finally passed a law that said loot boxes are illegal. We want them out of any games that are here in our country. Yeah, done. And I'll talk about that more in just a second. But essentially, why that is so important to knowing that before moving forward in this is the reason why they say, we understand this will have an impact on the enjoyment of our players in Belgium, but we feel that we have no choice. Is either, it basically comes down to, you either take out your in-game purchasable items that sort of lead to a game of chance for the player, or your game is going to have to be taken out of our country altogether. So it was basically either comply, right, and basically not allow Belgian players to purchase in-game items anymore, or essentially screw over the entire Belgian player base and say, nope, we don't want to comply, and the game gets taken down. And then I really don't know what would happen. I assume if you already had the app downloaded, you would get to keep it, but you might not be able to connect to the servers anymore. I don't know. That would be an intriguing sort of situation to see how that plays out. So before I actually move forward in this video, I want to give a huge shout out to anyone that lives in Belgium that watches my videos, that plays this game, and just say that I feel for you right now. Because regardless of whether, you know, you were super deep or you just spent a little bit, I feel for you, because you basically just got your ability to purchase in-game purchases completely taken away. And so my condolences to you on that, for real. Matter of fact, if you are from Belgium and you watch my videos, feel free to let me know down below your thoughts on this. Now, to move forward into what I was talking about, knowing more about this, if you don't pay too much attention to the video game industry as a whole, you might have missed this, but back when Battlefront 2 launched, in case you guys weren't paying attention to that, Battlefront 2, but right before it launched, it came out that, like, to get some of the in-game items that you could spend money on and get within, you know, moments, to actually do the in-game way, right, and earn it for yourself without spending money, it was going to take like 20 or 25 hours for some like very basic things, which of course set a fire under the gaming community, because people were like, hang on, wait, what? You mean I could spend like 20 bucks and get this like this? Or I could spend 25 hours of my life and get it like that was super corny, but I don't care. Anyway, so basically that sparked this big sort of thing, this sort of big look into loot boxes as a whole, and eventually, April of this year, the Belgian Gaming Commission ended up looking at the main culprits here were Overwatch, FIFA, CSGO, and then Battlefront 2 ended up getting the sort of let go because they changed the sort of how that game operated, because, well, EA had to, right? Like, that was one of the biggest things, the biggest sort of gaming talks of last year was Battlefront 2 and its sort of in-game progression and in-game purchases. that led to that game getting completely changed. But I also think that game failed pretty hard, I think, in comparison to what they were definitely expecting. So anyway, all that led to basically Belgium saying this act is incredibly predatory. It's something that definitely affects the youth in our country, and we do not want it affecting them in this way. They essentially were saying the in-game purchases were predatory in the sense that children don't have maybe the biggest idea of monetary value yet, right? So they could spend $500 and not fully grasp that they just spent $500. And on top of that, it could build this sort of gambling addiction into their personality at a young age that could affect them for the rest of their life. So I totally see where they're coming from. I think that it could have been maybe handled a little bit differently, but I do see where they're coming from on this. And of course, they passed that law. And the thing about it is they didn't give a deadline, so that's why this is just now hitting Dokkan as well as Blazing. And I haven't seen anyone comment on One Piece Treasure Cruise, but I have to imagine it affected that as well. I imagine if it was a Bandai sanctioned game, it got affected as of now, right? So if you live in Belgium, you can't purchase in-app purchases on Dokkan, on Blazing for sure, and I'm sure any of the other games, as I said, like One Piece Treasure Cruise. Like, this affected more than just Dokkan, and that's why I'm trying to go into this, because I have a lot of people freaking out thinking the game's going to shut down. It's not shutting down, right? That is a big thing to look at here. The game is not getting shut down. Matter of fact, because of them complying with it, is why it isn't getting shut down, because they don't want it to get shut down, which makes sense. I also want to discuss the free-to-play side, because a lot of people are asking me, do they think this is going to affect free-to-play? We'll get there in just a second. So essentially all that happened, they passed those laws. They said your company's going to get sued. They actually threatened jail time, if I'm not mistaken. I remember them, I think, threatening jail time to actual like executives of companies if this didn't happen and they didn't take loot boxes and all those things out of their games. But they didn't actually really give them a timeline, so that's why this sort of got passed in April, but it's just now happening right now for Dokkan as well as the other Bandai games. And I know that Blizzard just a couple of weeks ago, I think maybe just exactly 2 weeks ago, took out any form of their sort of loot box in any of their games inside Belgium as well. Now, the big thing to look at here, and the thing that I've been getting asked a lot about, is do I think this is going to spread to other countries? And the answer is yes. Maybe not in the same way though. So right now, if you do any sort of search over Belgium loot boxes, you will also see that Finland is taking note and looking into doing something similar, as well as back earlier this year, Hawaii here in the States actually tried doing something as well, but it actually got declined. And it wasn't the same thing. It wasn't to the extent of saying banned, right? Like, we don't want anyone spending money on it at all, but it was actually regulation on it. So what they're wanting to do in Hawaii is make it to where you have to be at least 21 or above to be able to purchase any sort of in-app thing like this, where you're going to do a game of chance, right? And that's the big problem that they're having with this, is that games like FIFA, games like CSGO, games like Dokkan, Blazing, you're giving the company money and you're not actually getting anything guaranteed back. So even though like with Dokkan now it is guaranteed SSR, you're not guaranteed to give them $40 and walk with LR Goku and Frieza, is their sort of issue with this. So with like FIFA, you give them $200, you really want that specific Ronaldo, and you don't ever actually get him for your team, right? That is what they're looking at, and that is what they're saying is predatory, and that is what they're banning. In my opinion, what I think is going to more or less happen, we probably won't see it here in the US, maybe even in the lifespan of Dokkan. I don't foresee it spreading to that extent, but I do think we'll see more countries maybe adapt a regulation system on it. And so right now, Finland is looking into it. So for those of you that have been asking me, Nano, is this going to spread? Like, what does this mean? Yes, like you're going to absolutely, now that one country's done it, you're going to see other countries follow suit. So anyone that didn't see this coming, well, surprise, right? And so, yeah, I do think we will see other countries adapt it, but I don't know that it'd be to the extremity of saying just straight up it's banned. I think it'll be more along the lines of what Hawaii is doing. And again, I don't want to get too much into that, but that's basically just the hard facts right now of what's happening. Hawaii's ended up getting turned down, but I'm sure they are trying to reapply it, maybe readjust the regulation that they were trying to do. Then next, but last but not least here, what does this mean for Dokkan, free-to-play, and all of that? Well, I will already say one huge thing here is that if you looked back at the game 2 years ago, it was literally that Bandai was sprinting towards the way of spending money on the game and like leisurely strolling towards the way of free-to-play. Whereas nowadays, it's still sprinting. I'm not going to argue. I'm not going to defend. I'm not going to do any of that. They are absolutely still sprinting in the direction of paying money to do things on this game, because we literally just had a transforming Goku and Frieza dual Dokkan Fest release, and 2 weeks later got an LR Goku and Frieza, the thing that most people have been asking since March of this year for. So no, I think they're absolutely still spraying towards this way. But I think that now it's not a leisure walk, it's more of at least a jog to maybe even almost running towards the way of free-to-play, because look at what they've done for free-to-play lately. Not to mention the Ginyu Force, but just look at the Trunks go to the mirror. Now, I'm not going to sit here and overhype this unit. I'm not going to act like this unit is the best thing ever, but it is a huge step in a direction that we really weren't seeing often before, because that literally just came out 2 weeks after getting a fully free-to-play Easy A Piccolo that is absolutely fantastic, that we all know is a very, very, very good unit. On top of the Ginyu Force, not only can be ran with the actual Goku Ginyu as the lead, but can also be ran with the free-to-play Easy A Gohan, both of which, the Gohan and the Piccolo, are easy to obtain, and you don't need very strong teams to be able to get them. And now, Piccolo's Easy A is a little bit more difficult than Gohan's, but you can still use him without him even being Easy A. So, again, I think that they are going to be doing more things like this to help the free-to-play friendly side. Now, seeing a lot of people ask me, do I think they're going to implement a way for players in Belgium to obtain stones more often? That's possible. I think that as much as we like to sort of, you know, grill Bandai for some of the things they do, I do think that they at least care about their player base to some extent, and I can see them implementing something. I'm not saying a unlimited way of obtaining Dragon Stones, but I could see them implementing some form of something that allows Belgian players to be able to summon more often in some form, somehow, or maybe the entire player base, I don't know. But I do think that they will eventually do something, but I think that they're already doing things in the right direction for free-to-play anyway. Either way, guys, that is sort of the situation. It was already a thing that was affecting many more things than just Dokkan. I know there's a lot of people maybe don't pay attention to the rest of the video game industry, and so this was like a huge, like, what? You know, and no, it was something that we knew was coming. We had discussed it over on Twitter that eventually it would affect gacha games to some extent, and I do think we will see more of it, but I don't know that it will be just full outright banning in-app purchases, but more or less regulations on them. So we'll see what happens with that. Again, that's something that's maybe a little above what I would normally talk about here on the channel, but I did wanted to discuss it just because I've been tagged in so many posts about it, and I wanted to sort of give you guys some more info in case you hadn't been aware of what was going on inside the video game industry outside of course, just Dokkan. So guys, if you're new to the channel, you enjoyed today's video, all those things, consider going down there right now, hitting that subscribe button and joining the hashtag NanoFam today. Consider slapping the like button as well. I know this was a bit of a different one, but I did want to discuss it and talk about it because it is, you know, something that will affect us to some extent that play Dokkan, that play these games, that have these in-app purchases. I just wanted to sort of put that out there. So guys, have a great day. Keep on keeping on. Nanogenix on off, and I will see you all in the next video. Bye, guys.